Hi, my name is Olivia, and today I'm going to be talking about the translation of the Book of Mormon from English into Spanish. For a little bit of background and context, members of the Church of Jesus Christ believe that the Book of Mormon is an ancient record translated from gold plates using a tool called the Urim and Thummim. All of the process was miraculous and required direct intervention from God. My question is, if we as members of the Church of Jesus Christ do believe that these tools, the first record as well as the Urim and Thummim, were taken from the earth, how could the religious integrity of the translations of the Book of Mormon be maintained? Are these translations just as valid and credible as the original English edition? So I compared different revisions, different retranslations of the Book of Mormon, as well as the original translation, with the translation that we have today to try to figure out what strategies were used. The first that I observed was a layered review process for each translation, as well as for translations with one another. Now I'll kind of get into that. Basically, it's like a intra translation. It's an intra. It's within the translation, there's a layered editing process. And then once the translation is complete, that is edited against other translations. Okay, I'll get into it. The second is the use of cross-referencing with La Reina Valera and the King James Version of the Bible. And finally, the use of formal and neutral Spanish terms. Here's my process. I have at the top the Book of Mormon translation that we use today. That's on LDS.org and that you can buy at Deseret Book. And each of the colors are the changes that were made from this edition with the earlier translations. So the pink, for instance, is the updated edition, which was the first full translation of the Book of Mormon. The second, the blue, is the spelling and the updated terms that was produced by Ray L. Pratt and published by the Mexican Mission. And then the green is the retranslation that was released under the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as was reviewed. The whole process was under the stewardship of Eduardo Valderas. And the orange, if there's orange edits, that's the differences between the translation of the Spanish and the English, the phrases. Yeah, but just to explain how this translation came to be, I'm going to read something from the church. This is a process of a translation, how it becomes. This is a process of getting a translation into Spanish. The Council of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles consider recommendations from area presidencies for new translations of the Book of Mormon or a new language. Before it is translated, gospel fundamentals and other basic doctrinal items such as the Articles of Faith are translated, if they have not been translated, in order to establish standard technology. Translation work for the Book of Mormon is carried out by worthy, qualified members who are required specifically to do the task. And I want to talk about this just because this is part of the authority by which a translation occurs. We believe it's all done through priesthood callings and under the stewardship of people who have what we call keys to direct something. These are the same types of powers that Joseph Smith, this is the same authority that Joseph Smith had. Okay, but anyways, let's get back to the linguistics. First Nephi 1. So here's the original English translation that we have, and here's the final Spanish translation. This is the 1886 version. If you can see, there's a ton of changes between that and the final version. Then they started to, it started becoming more faithful to the original English, more direct of a translation in the 1929 edition. And if you can see here, there's only 2 differences between this version and the final edition in Spanish. And the final Spanish edition that we have right now has only two differences in phrasing with the English translation. And these are all the learning is en toda la ciencia, and of the proceedings of my days is de los hechos de mi vida. So I think the reason, a quote that I found from the chief editor, the chief translator of the church, Eduardo Balderas, explains this. It says, being language conscious in the process of translating, we marveled many times at the simplicity of the Prophet Joseph Smith's language, and yet the beauty of the spiritual tone it carried. So basically, the translators tried to make their version, their translation, as direct as possible because they believed the original words were sacred as they were. Okay, another effective strategy was cross-referencing. Here is 1 Nephi verse 4, which includes the names of prophets and places that are from the Bible as well. So I found translations in La Reina Valera, and these were the same translations of these terms that appear in the Book of Mormon. In addition, the use of cross-referencing helps contextualize the information to help translators. Each of the highlights represents a consistency with the Bible. And finally, these are some interesting terms because they're not going to be found in conversational Spanish today. They're more consistent with the language of the 17th and 16th century, which is the same language that is found in La Reina Valera and the King James Version. There's many benefits to the use of terms like acaeció, arrebatado, concursos, and these are some of them that I thought were significant, were that they separate the language of the scriptures from secular language to make a more pronounced distinction. Yeah, and they also which preserves the sacred tone. They also align with religious tradition, they distinguish from, and they maintain consistency across time. So if we go back to more traditional Spanish, the Spanish of today has changed from it, but we all come from but all of the Spanish comes from the same origin, the same ancestors. So for instance, I thought of a example was like playera to us now that has a bunch of different meanings depending on your region because it's evolved. But words like arbetado, which aren't used today, still have the same consistent meaning. Okay. And I went the wrong direction. Finally, here are some discussion questions that I have, which are, do you think the language of the scriptures has become outdated? And do you think this is necessarily the case? Should religious translators consider modern connotations of words when translating directly? And do you think the spiritual truths of the Book of Mormon can remain intact, even if there are differences in linguistic expression? Why or not? Thank you so much. This has been a delight to research, and I have a lot more things I'd love to talk about, so please reach out to me and if you have any questions. Thanks.